Okay, so here we are. This is would be the part 5, the 5th installment of their journey of making me a musician. And at this point, I have essentially gone through the beginner's module. I've gone through and I've did everything in it, transitioned from the keys, and I've been, so I started with G, then I did D and A, and I've been kind of
And you did all the bowing exercises and everything
so I
to begin with.
did the whole thing, and we can get into. I can get into all those details, and we can
Holding the violin, holding the
we can
bow
get into
before
all
that. Yeah.
But essentially, where I'm at now is that, was the goal in the first place, was to get me to where I could use the tune library, which I
Right.
can, and I have already started playing Rubber Dolly.
Yeah, and you had spoiler. He had told me this, which I was very surprised. and happy about, and not. I was surprised he had went ahead, but I wasn't surprised that he was able to do that. So
Yeah, and it was pretty cool how quickly that the loop video, especially for us beginners, the looping, the Hartz looper
device, yeah,
it is so great when you're learning a song, because I could literally take a part of the song, so the first part of Rubber Dolly, slow it down to like 80%, loop that part over and over again of you teaching it. Got that down, okay, I'll move the loop over to the second part of the song, loop that over and over again, get that down, and then put the whole thing together. So pretty quickly, about 45 minutes of just doing that, I had the thing down. And for me, that was incredible, like it wasn't perfect, but like I'm able to get through the song to the point where, like, okay, now I can just practice the song, and playing with you in my headphones.
right. And now here's a good point for me, because we've been talking a lot about this in our separate conversations, and I'll keep remembering about. So now you're past the beginner's module, and now you're able to learn some of the beginner songs and on the tunes on the website, right? And so once you do get that Rubber Dolly under your fingers, now this is where I feel like, okay, this is where you can really start. It's like, so now you've got Rubber Dolly under your fingers, and so this is the way that you and I have the lessons set up. This is a great opportunity for lots of repetition, and not just repetition, but different repetition. So first thing I would want a student to do after they get it under their fingers is to go ahead and play with that version that I play at the very beginning of the lesson, right? And just loop that and play with that over and over. And then you can also go down to the accompaniment lesson where we're playing, and even though you can play along with that, but then also we have the backing track by itself. When you feel really brave, you can go to that and see if you can play with that. But you have lots of
layers,
opportunities to play along with me playing violin and guitar, not just in the fiddle video, but then go down and use the accompaniment lesson for that too. It'd be slightly different maybe, and on some tunes, not for something like Rubber Dolly, but there's lots of opportunity for repetition, and that's what we need.
Is what you're saying, in different
ways, but playing along with these recordings, because I'm doing them in time, hopefully in tune. All this other stuff. It's very much what I did to learn when I was young, is play along with records, but now it's really guided. An instructor is guiding you through certain exercises. So use it all like you're playing along with me, and do as much of that as you possibly can after you think you have the dang thing learned.
Right.
When you're done getting the notes down, or you feel like, okay, I've got the sequence down,
yeah,
or whatever, this structure or the form. Sometimes I don't think it's good to even think of it as a sequence so much as a structure,
okay,
or a form,
okay,
that we're paying attention to. But once you have that process down, that's when you really start learning the song. That's when your body and your mind, because it's not worried about the information. You've got that down, and now it's beating it into your body and your mind, and that's just repetition. And
you're saying like there's value in not just playing it with the first part of the lesson of the fiddle lesson
Yes.
itself, but also to play it with the
Go down
guitar,
to where there's
the
an
video.
there's an extra opportunity for the fiddle player to just go down there and practice it. You can do the backing track by itself, which
with
is
just guitar.
yeah, but you
could
can
also
come
do-
down here and go to about the middle of the accompaniment lessons is where we start to make the track and just play along with it there too.
Okay, so all these different ways.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's not that different, but it just works your mind a little differently.
in a different way. Okay.
You know, I mean, possibly.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. And so just while, we're still kind of on the rubber dolly topic, another thing you had said, which I did, is because I told you, I was like, hey, I just, we were supposed to meet earlier than we did. And then I was like, well, I want to try something. So I started rubber dolly and I told you that I did that and that I had it down and you're like, okay, record yourself now.
Oh yes, I'm glad you brought this up.
And and you said just to audio record, but I was like, whatever. I'll put a video up so I can see myself too. I'd like to,
right. Now the audio thing is so you can have this very easily go through and hear a couple of notes. It's good to do the audio recording too, just so that you've got a bank of these things. It's not like you're going to be able to store a bunch of videos, or you would be able to store a ton of videos on your phone, but you wouldn't be, you know what I mean? It's the idea that you can keep it there and it's there.
Right. And so, and even, it's funny is like, okay, I'm just gonna give this a shot. And even in the video, like I even got done with the song and I was like, okay, because I even like shocked myself that after just, I'd say it was about 45 minutes to get it down and then I played for another maybe 30, 40 minutes and then I recorded. But you had said from the very beginning that it doesn't take very long to get someone up and going. And I am a full testament to that now because it was 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I think, if I, somewhere in there. I was practicing. I was enjoying myself and it wasn't
We could have done it quicker than that.
And it wasn't, and that was me fitting my practices in
working with the beginner's module the way we have it laid out and everything, not rushing things.
Yeah, right. And so, but to me, still 3 weeks to fill the confidence of being able to use. I even looked at some of the other beginner too. Like I looked at Tennessee Waltz, and I looked at Amazing Grace, and I looked at it. I just watched it, and I was like, oh, I can do that. I can't just pick it up and do it, but I know how to learn that now, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty. I don't know. It's like this whole open all these doors for me of or just one giant door of okay, now I can kind of just see what I can learn because I have that base knowledge from the beginner's module.
We're still and you got a little bit of base knowledge, but even that base knowledge that we've given you has given you those eyes, right?
Yes.
And before I forget, the one thing I wanted to say about this thing of recording yourself after, and maybe you were getting to that too, is that's a trick that for all of these people that think that they can't learn without standard notation or tablature, just I can't do it, Of course, it was done forever before they tried, before those things came along, right? Especially in these styles of music. But they think that they can't do that. And one of the tricks that I think I developed it on myself is I was learning, let's say, Bill Cheatham off Terry Morris's A Touch of Texas when I was 14, 15 years old. What I would do is literally, that's a lot of information. I mean, it's basically a long improvisation of his on that tune, 2 or 3 minutes long, right? And so everything is different. There's not one part that's, I can't just learn a part, right? So, but the way I would document that is to go, okay, I learned a part. I've got it as down as good as I possibly can, all the notes and I was already an advanced player, right? But the way I would document that is go to a tape recorder and push record and say, okay, here's the first A section that he's doing. Record that, document it. It's proving to me without a piece of, okay, I know that. I can go back to that recording. It's some sort of a trick that makes me think, okay, I've digested it. It's in there.
It's in there.
And I can prove that it's in there, right? Yeah. Now I go and learn the next A section and do the same thing, and I build that. And that's the way I used to learn all of these things. And I think it was giving myself a backup because I wasn't maybe subconsciously, because I really wasn't worried about that myself. But for these folks that think that they can't play without their music or a sheet of tablature, this is a method that they can do. So record yourself. After you learn something, record yourself doing it.
A little confidence booster almost, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. No, and it's, I think that is, when you gave me that piece of advice, which, you even said, you're like, oh, this is when you do this. Now, if this is how you feel right now, because even if it's not good, you'll be able to see how much you improved later. Like that was another thing that you had mentioned.
Another great way to document progress.
Yes, exactly. So it's all part of that, the brain trick, and then the confidence building, all that all plays into the role there. So essentially, like, I feel like I could play anything in the key of G, D, or A. I could figure out to play. I mean, I can't play anything, but I could figure out how that plays, and maybe I go, no, I'm not there yet, or yeah, I can do this, whatever.
No, yeah, I have confidence that you could probably figure out from what we've got on the website those simple melodies and all those keys. Yeah, easily.
So now, with that being said, that's kind of where I'm at. Update of where I'm at. Kind of want to talk about, and these are probably going to be some dumb questions, but they are questions that, there's no, whenever someone talks to me about something, I'm really knowledgeable, and I say there's never a dumb question. You don't know. How would you know?
You know I feel that way.
Yeah, so I know you feel that way, so I'm just going to say it. First thing that I came across was when we were doing the notes in a specific key, right? There's 7 notes in the key.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's 7 notes in the scale.
In the scale, excuse me. Okay, so I guess that's the difference right there, between a key and a scale. So can you help me understand that a little bit? Because one thing that confused me was when in Rubber Dolly, I think it's the F on the D string, F sharp on the D string, but you also play the F sharp on the E string. Mm-hmm. But when you first were when you were in the lesson, you said, okay, now get the F sharp. And I thought because it wasn't in the scale that it wasn't, that like you couldn't play it. So this is a good point. By this, did we do a 2-octave scales in the key modules? No, we don't.
Did we do an extended D major scale?
They're not in the beginner's module, no.
Okay, that's something we need to think about adding to that for that, because that one scale is just a limited shot of that scale, right? That scale keeps repeating itself over the whole violin.
That's what I kind of put together.
And so, what if I would have given you a 2-octave A major scale, then you would have put that together more easily. And if I would have shown, it's just some of the finger positions are a little bit tough.
Tricky.
Well, for the beginners, it's something we'll need to think about adding to the beginners module. But does that make sense?
Yes,
to you?
It does, and that's kind of what I put together. But in the moment, I was like, I had to be like, oh, I thought that this is the F sharp in this scale. So when we went up to it, when we had a different F sharp, that was just the. But so what you're saying, and so. So you can have just a scale, and then you can have a 2-octave scale.
Yeah, you can on a piano. I can play you several octaves.
Right?
So
Yeah,
just keep going, right? But you're limited by the distance on the violin.
And so you can.
My thing is I'm wondering. This is where we definitely need to either do that for the end of the beginners module. 2 octaves for G and A, and we could do something similar for D that's actually an extended scale, but because the scale lies in the middle 2 strings, or because of where we can't do a clean 2 octaves in just first position. But anyway, and that's getting confusing right there. But that either needs to be in the end of the beginners module, or there needs to be a lesson that before you get started on these tunes like Rubber Dolly and Boiled Cabbages, I don't think is a problem, but there's some that travel outside of the octave. Let's say they're not a simple melody that just stays within
that octave,
the octave of the scale, still in the same key, meaning using the same scale, right?
Okay.
Does that make any
Yeah,
sense?
it makes total sense. It makes total sense. It was just something that.
Good question. That brings up something we need to address.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that was something I came across. I figured it out pretty quickly. It's like, okay, so obviously there's more to this scale than I thought. And I'm just gonna ask, because you've said this many times in watching you, but I never understood. So first position, what are we talking about? Not that we have to get into it, but just like, what's the idea? What is that?
It's where we are.
Okay. Okay. And so
it's where we are, and it means that our first finger is going to land a whole step away from the open strings. So that's first position. So on the G string, that A note is going to be first position on the D, then we're setting up our fingers to play from that anchor position. Okay, so this index finger determines position. Now, when I move, I'm going to just give one small example here. When I move this first finger to where the ring finger is, which is very common, it's probably the second position that anybody learns, that is called third position. Why? Because it's that third finger. So we're going to call that, we're moving our index to where the third finger would be. Now that's third position. We can move our first finger to where our fourth finger would be. That's fourth position. We can move our first finger to where, in tab we'd call it a low second finger, but that's true second position. But we can even move our first finger. See, I've gone way down the rabbit hole. We can go in between G and A on that lowest string. I told you A is first position. Mm-hmm. If we set up with our first finger at the A flat or the G sharp, which is the half step between that, that's now half position. You've heard me talk about things like that before.
Yeah. Never.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
So.
That's where we're at. First position was where we're at, so that's good. But I did want to ask, because I just wanted to know. I like whole picture things.
It's helping you piece things together.
Yes, exactly. Even though it's not anything I need to worry about at this point, it's something that I would like to know. Because you have brought up the word first position, or the phrase first position. So another thing about getting into the songs or the tunes on the in the beginner is you do, and I think you've talked about it before, is you do start to do a little vibrato, and I just want you to talk.
That's just natural. I try to do as little as I possibly can.
But you said it just kind of happens. So as not something we don't need to worry about hitting vibrato on that. And can you just talk about the journey moving forward of vibrato is a huge part of the violin, and and so not that we want something to worry about, but I'm just curious, like looking forward, like, how does that get incorporated, or when do you usually bring that in?
I think when I very first was teaching, or early in my teaching career down in Texas, and I remember I had a lady that was obsessed with learning vibrato, and I was very young, and I was into just trying anything, and I remember tying something to a ceiling and suspending her violin so she could free up her hand so we could try some of these exercises. And what I learned through that whole process, you don't do it.
Okay.
It's people want that vibrato so bad. How do I do it? And the worst thing you can do is to force it. Yeah. Or to try to teach it at an early stage in the game. That is just mind-melting for some people. It's something that for me started happening just automatically. It's just something that my body started doing. No one ever really taught me vibrato, right? And my vibrato is different. I mean, I use primarily just a simple wrist vibrato, and I even use it in kind of a lazy way that jazz or folk players would use it, right? But it's something that's it usually happens naturally. And you
So
said, see, you're playing, you listen right there,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
and so you definitely do not want to force it right now. I'll do some supplemental videos on what needs to happen when you are ready for that. But the worst thing somebody needs to be playing for a good long while before they even think about that. As a matter of fact, it's because vibrato varies the note, right? It's like an opera singer. I always wonder, how in the hell can you ever tell if they're singing in tune? It's that much vibrato, on the, it sounds like my voice with dysphonia. But vibrato covers you a little bit because you're wavering the note. You're changing the pitch slightly up and right? So for a beginner and practicing intonation, it's better they don't have that vibrato, because then they're just going to get a plain picture of where that note is, right? If they know how to play vibrato, they can cover up whether or not they're in tune or not. So it's really great for a beginner to not use vibrato. And I know lots of instructors that when they're teaching beginners and intermediate players, even when they're able to do the vibrato, say, quit playing with I want you to play that scale without vibrato. I don't want you covering up your intonation.
See, and now, because I like to get things down, it's that hearing you say that actually is motivating for me to not to like, okay, don't even think about it.
So
because,
far down the line.
Don't even think about it, because it doesn't. That's not what That's not where I'd want to get the notes down. So I'd rather have that solid foundation, and when that happens, that happens.
And when that starts to happen, once you've got the notes down and you become so confident with it, you naturally start doing some of that stuff without a lot of conscious thought. Now, and it's going to be a situation where with you, because I'm trying to be hands off and let you work with the stuff as much as you possibly can. I'm not going to be correcting you, but if I see you doing something and you've got something going on that's not the way it should be, then I'm liable to correct you. There are things that, playing vibrato on the guitar is much different than it is playing it on the violin.
Sure.
And you can, but it's a different movement. Mm-hmm. And so that is something that I see, especially for people. I don't have to worry about that with you because you've never played a guitar, but people that have played the guitar will try to manipulate a violin the way they manipulate the guitar, and that's where I see, oops, you're doing that wrong. Mm-hmm. You got to do this. But we do need to make that. That's another supplemental video, real simple video that we can make on the basic movement of vibrato. But even at that, I would not want beginners to look at that prematurely.
Have a disclaimer say
don't even look at this till you're able to, let's say, play a lot of the intermediate waltzes.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of the benchmark, you would say.
Well, that's where you're going to be using your vibrato more, as on the slower tunes that have the space. And so once you get solid with a few of those things, then that, if you're integrating vibrato at that point, I think makes sense.
Okay. So then the other thing about playing with the tunes is the importance of starting up bow versus down bow.
Okay, right now, what we need to do is just follow what I've got on there.
And that was, so a lot of the stuff, I think almost everything on the beginner's module, you're starting down bow.
Yeah, but some of it will be up bow.
But when I went to rubber dolly,
yes,
start up bow.
And so that's all. Okay, the reason that happens is because, so it's in 4/4 time. There's 3 pickup notes to rubber dolly, meaning that before the actual first measure, there's 2, 3, 4, 1, and so that would line up. If I'm playing all those notes down, up. If I was on the beat, right, down, up. But because we're starting that pickup note, and you don't need to know this on the 2, it needs to go up, down, up. So we're down bow on the down beat. of that first measure, and that's why. So you just need to follow directions right now.
But okay.
Yeah, and when you're doing the repetitions, you'll know if you're off from me bowing wise and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's. But the reason is just that the only reason is it's. If I'm starting you up bow, it's either there's one grace note before a down bow, or there's a series of notes before the first down beat of the measure, that sort of thing. Like Twinkle Twinkle and Mary Had a Little Lamb, it just starts right out of the gate. 1, 2, ready, go. Mare, right on the first beat. Mary Had a Little Lamb. 1, 2, ready, go. Twinkle, twinkle. Those tunes all start right on the first beat of the measure.
Okay. Cool. Makes sense. Along with bowing, when you say, and you had mentioned this before, you mentioned this like in the lesson with us, when you say a straight bow, does that mean parallel with the bridge?
Parallel with the bridge.
Okay.
And in the middle of that bridge and the end of the fingerboard.
So if I'm bowing and I've seen, trying to watch myself in the mirror, and the bow starts like, sometimes it looks like it's kind of off this way. That's not up bow. I mean, sorry, that's not straight. That's not a straight bow, correct? Or
it's you need to use those things as a general guide. You need to watch it from here and look there. It's not depending on your angle. It's gonna it might have a slight different look to it. Does that make any sense?
Yes. Because there were times where it's like I feel like I'm doing a straight bow, but it doesn't necessarily look like it.
Right, and then that's you just need to watch. Do that every once in a while. Okay. You know what I mean? To check yourself. Because that should once we get going on that shouldn't be a conscious thought. But I like the fact that you're checking yourself.
And and then another good point with that was the video too, being able to see if I was the straight bow while recording myself. So so that was all the questions I had. I think that's probably potentially some questions that other people could have too. This was good because now we have some other supplemental videos we might want to add to the whole thing.
Yes, for instance, we need to write down those 2 octave scales and extended scales and the vibrato thing. So
that's good. And then if you're watching and you're following along and you're on this journey with me and you have a question, please comment, let us know. Well, we will definitely 100% answer that in some form or another. So that was this. So now I guess this is where I'm at, right? And so someone who is doing this at home, they could just start working through the tunes, right? Is there, I guess, so as there's more, I mean, they could just work through the tunes and essentially get to a good space, but like, I guess, is there supplemental stuff that they, like what would you have me, like what is something you're going to have me do besides just play the tunes that...
Well, I want you to continue with your bowing exercises and your the simple scales and even your simple melodies. Because you've learned them, and it doesn't mean that you graduated from them. So you should start. Well said. You should start. Pick a few things. Maybe every day you pick like, okay, today I'm gonna warm up by doing all my G stuff. I'm gonna do my bowing exercises. I'm gonna go through all the simple melodies in G, and or maybe you do that in all 3 keys. It really doesn't take you that long.
No, it doesn't.
About 5 minutes or something like that.
It's a good warm up.
But do it with intention. And if you find yourself, I don't know if that's quite in tune, and then also do it with me on the videos, right? So a significant amount of your practice needs to be doing stuff you've already learned.
Okay.
Because we want to really solidify all that stuff.
Okay.
And so my answer to that is don't move on from any of the beginner stuff. No, keep working on all of that stuff, and then start to slowly add tunes like Rubber Dolly and Boil the Cabbage are perfect right now. But you'll find yourself being able to work through a bunch of stuff. If we were doing regular lessons, this would be the point where I would pick and choose tunes for you off the website, and probably do it as a key study. So I would pick tunes that were all in G or D or A, and so that we start to really understand the keys and solidifying things within those keys, and kind of working that way.
Okay.
So, but it's not going to hurt you to move either, so
Yeah.
it's like I could keep you all in one key or not,
Okay. But that being said, if somebody were on their own, that's a good way to go, is to focus on a...
Yeah, I mean, you've got me interested because I have not heard you play Rubber Dolly or Boil the Cabbage or any of these things.
I have the video. Do you want to watch the video?
Well,
Or do you want to save that?
I probably want to save that.
Let's save
that
okay.
for
another video.
Okay. Yeah.
So the next video, I don't know what the next video will be. Probably me practicing something. But anyway, I don't remember what I was saying. But what I do want to talk about is the one thing that happened, especially playing Rubber Dolly, is I made my finger, this part of my finger, sore to the point where I had to stop playing for a couple days. And so, you said that is a thing. So I just,
Yeah, you're gonna. I mean, it's the most exaggerated of compressing the fingers like that is with the index finger, and we often teach to have that little V. But that's just a. It's something
happens.
for, yes, people get a sore index finger sometimes when
on
they're
the top like that. Okay. Okay. And just like
and when I exaggerate that like that just for demonstration, I even get that stretching feeling right there. But I think it is you'll stretch those ligaments in there is what will happen.
Okay. Yeah, and that's just a part of the game.
Rest, and then probably best to get that thing back, even if you're not going to be making noise at the condo. Get those fingers up there and practice putting them down.
Yeah. When it was, I think it's reaching back to the E on the D string is where that compression really happens on Rubber Dolly.
Well, and so then that's another spot where we can think of, moving the hand back just a little bit,
and I had to.
Right. And so then you're reaching a tiny bit more for the notes,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
But you're in these formative stages. All these little things, that's all right. We don't, that's.
Yeah. And just real quick, last thing that I meant to bring up was because you had kind of talked about a little bit. Is just like you said you kind of just have to live with being not in this brain scramble. You just
right.
Because it can be a little frustrating on this end, not knowing, and just kind of being like, okay.
Well, specifically, you had mentioned that like you would play something, and this was a couple of weeks ago, where you're saying, man, I don't know, it sounded like it was in tune, but then I got done and I didn't think it was in tune, and I was just like, sometimes I think I can tell, and sometimes I can't, and that's all normal. My question for you is, a couple of weeks down the line from that moment, don't you feel like a little bit better of what being in tune is?
Yeah.
Your body is learning. Your body is how to hear and feel the frequencies that go on in music, right? And you are brand new to this stuff, and so the scramble is normal. I know exactly what you're talking about. For something really, to have those frequencies really resonate, when they really do, it's like really, I could tell that thing, and then next time you pick it up, it's like, is that in tune or not? It's like, that's all just part of the, you're building that foundation now. That's why I'm having you work on the keyboard and playing all those same notes on the keyboard, because that's building it into you too, right?
Right. Okay. I love it. It's so fun. That's the other thing too, is that like I practiced every chance I could, even though I'm busy, because it's fun. I enjoy it. It's definitely not like, I think some people get caught up in the destination of learning an instrument, as
it's all about the
just
journey
enjoying,
with everything.
And feel just the incremental steps of getting better.
Small steps, and that's why I've got you. You stay on those easy things, and you enjoy playing them.
Yeah,
you do that. That's the key. Don't get bored with that.
Yeah.
Think, how can I make this simple thing stronger? How can I improve this just a little bit? How can I, and you stay and you keep things small, and then you add that rubber dolly and you play that for a while, and you add that boil the cabbage, and you keep those things, you stay on them, you put in every time you practice, you put a certain amount into those things, so you're building consistency, and before you know it, if you really enjoy and stay focused on that process, your goals are always behind you.
Yeah.
They are. You look up out of, and you get out of that fog, and you go, "Oh shit, that thing I wanted to do is back there."
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, totally.
And that's what's getting in the flow.
Yeah.
It's me painting down here. I didn't paint some of these beautiful murals, but some of, I really truly, I'm weird like that,
yeah.
but I get in, and when I'm really in the flow on even just painting a wall, if I stay in the moment, before long I've got 2 or 3 walls done.
Well, and I mean, it's already kind of happened. My goal was to just get through the beginner's module, and now I have rubber dolly, and so it's already. I mean, to your point, it's already happened. So, okay, that's gonna wrap up this conversation and then we'll see what happens next. We're just, like I always say, we're just kind of going with the flow on this thing, and it's been fun, and we'll keep doing it. So, stay tuned for next time. We'll see what we do. Okay, thanks.